All right, we're at part 4 in episode, What is Note Hypothecation and How It Can Work for You. You've come a long way. I hope you've been watching. Today we're going to discuss how to get the best interest rates, how to get the best terms, and that means you're probably going to have to go to a bank or an institutional lender. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you how you talk to these folks. My name is Mitch Stephen, and I've bought thousands of houses in or about my hometown of San Antonio, Texas. I borrow money, other people's money, to buy these houses. I owe about $26 million as we're filming this. So I know a little bit about how to talk to banks and how to talk to private lenders. Today we're going to be talking about what banks to approach when you want to hypothecate notes, how to leverage banks, how to find bankers that understand what you want to do, and last but not least, is note hypothecation a real estate loan? I bet you didn't think about that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so in episode 3, we did this whole case study where I wanted to take out my private lenders using a bank or an institutional lender. You don't go to the big box banks, I can tell you that, because this kind of strategy isn't going to check the boxes that they need to be checked off. Matter of fact, I'll be surprised if the person that you're talking to at the big box bank even knows what you're talking about. We want to go to community banks, small local banks. Probably this bank, someone on the board in the back room has the last name that's either in the bank's name or the last name of the great-grandfather who started the bank. These are regular business people that can sit down, look at a business plan and go, well, that makes sense. I see exactly what you're talking about. I think we'll do it. We want people that can think and rationalize to say yes, and that's the local community banks. Once upon a time, I was invited to a bank by a very long-time friend, and he gave me my start. And I was loyal to that bank to no end, because without him, I'd have never, ever had a banking relationship. But one day, he got hired by another bank, and that bank didn't do the kind of loans that I needed. I was a free agent, and now I was free to go out and have banks compete for my business. You see, when that one friend did me that favor and I was loyal, I could never go to another bank and say, hey, my friend, this other bank's offering me a little bit better deal. I couldn't do that because I'm a loyal person. He was there for me, and I wasn't going to split hairs over him over a couple of percent or a term or two. But when he left, I became a free agent, and now I was starting to leverage all the banks around me. I would take my business proposal to all the banks, all of them, and make them compete for my business. And it was a wonderful thing, because did it make a difference? Heck yes, it made a difference. And they don't get upset, and they're not mad at you for doing it. They actually expect you to do it. I thought this would be kind of precarious. You know, I was friends with this bank. They took me to some basketball games. I was friends with that bank. They took me dove hunting. I was friends with this bank over here. They took me quail hunting. And then here I was making them compete. And you know what? That's a day in the life for them. That's all they do. And I was surprised. They wanted to compete for my business. They still took me to lunch. They still took me to, even when they didn't get the loan, they were coming back next week to compete for the next loan. They were still taking me to the basketball games. They were still taking me to the hunts. So leverage the banks. Make them compete for your business. I was amazed that not every banker could get their arms around hypothecating notes and the scenario that I had described right here. A lot of times I'm positive I was talking over that banker's head. Not that they were dumb, it's just they weren't used to doing those kind of loans. They were used to doing other kind of loans, and either they really weren't understanding what I wanted to do, or they just weren't getting it. But not every banker understands or wants to do these hypothecations. How you find bankers that understand it is ask every banker you know and every banker you talk to in the future. This is another misnomer that I had. When I would go into a bank and start to talk to them about the loan that I wanted, we would come down to the point where they'd say, this isn't the kind of loan we do. We really don't want to do this kind of loan. We appreciate you coming in, but we're sorry. And then I would just leave. That was a big mistake. Before I left, I should have asked them, do you know anyone that likes these kind of loans, that likes to hypothecate notes as collateral? You see, I thought banks were competitors, and there was no way in hell that they were going to recommend another bank down the street that was a competitor, but I was completely wrong. All these bankers, the banking community is a tiny little community. They've all worked for each other over the years and the decades. You know, these three used to be at this bank, and this one went to be president at that bank, this one went to be president of another bank, and then they all ended up over at another. They've all worked together. They all know each other's names. It's amazing how small the banking community is in San Antonio, Texas, with a population of roughly just under 2 million. Everybody knows everybody in the banking industry. Not only that, but every banker knows what every other bank specializes in. It's their job to know exactly what those people charge, exactly what kind of terms they like or they don't like, to know all their competitors inside and out. So when you ask somebody who tells you, no, we don't do that loan, well, do you know anyone who does? If I'd have just done that, I would have found the banks that hypothecate right off the bat. Instead, I had to go to 28 banks to get 4 people in town that really, really wanted this kind of note, this kind of business, this kind of loan. Okay? I went to 28 banks to find 4. When if I'd have just asked the first 3 banks I went to that said no, they would have told me what 4 banks I needed to go to in the first place. So, always, when someone turns you down for a loan, ask that banker or that bank, who do you know in town that will do this loan? And don't be surprised if they give you the name and number right off the bat. They do it as a community service. They think, we don't want this loan, but maybe the next time he needs some money, it won't be this kind of loan. Maybe he'll need a loan for his house or his ranch or a car or whatever. I want to treat this guy good. I want to turn him on to someone who can help him. Even though I can't help him, I want to turn him on to someone who can help him because he'll remember that. And that's why they do it. And it makes perfect sense. I have always remembered the people that helped me get to where I was going. Another very interesting point that might save you a lot of money and might open the eyes of your banker, and they won't get it at first, 99% of them won't get it at first, is you're not asking for a real estate loan. You see, in this scenario right here, I was pledging 35 notes on houses. I was pledging my notes. Notes are personal property. I'm pledging my personal property as collateral. That's not a real estate loan. I'm pledging personal property. I'm pledging my notes. So a lot of people will assume that it's a real estate loan and they'll make you go out and get all these appraisals. If I had to get full-blown regular appraisals because this was a real estate loan, if I had to get full-blown appraisals on 35 houses, it would cost me $15,000, $16,000. But when my banker said, well, we're going to have to get appraisals, I pointed out to him that this is not technically a real estate loan. Now, this loan is backed up ultimately by real estate, i.e. houses, but it's not a real estate loan. He's taking my personal property, my notes, as collateral. And then the light bulb went off and he says, well, I think you're right, Mitch. Let me check with the president. So they checked with the president. I was right. The underwriters, the regulators, they could get by without having to get full-blown appraisals. But they still wanted some value placed on that real estate. So we came to an agreement that they would pick 15 random houses that I had notes on, and they would send out a broker to get his professional opinion. He would give a BPO, and that was like $150 a piece on half of my houses instead of $500 on every single one of my houses. So it saved me a ton of money. You're doing really great, and I want to appreciate you for staying with me. For those of you who stayed with me through part 1, part 2, part 3, and now this part 4, and you've gotten this far, smash that like button for me and share with your friends. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. There's a lot more where this comes from. And I'm going to get to the final point. This one's really important. It's key, and it could change your life yet again. I coach people all the time, all over the nation. The key is how to find funding for your deals. Either how to find private money or how to talk with these banks. One of the biggest stumbling blocks of all time when I'm talking to students and trying to get them to get enthusiastic about going out and finding funding and raising private money is they don't believe that anyone would want to loan them money. I haven't been in the business very long. I don't have a track record. Who's going to loan me money? I have bad credit. Who's going to loan me money? I filed bankruptcy a few years ago. Who's going to loan me money? You know, I don't have anything in my savings. I have some derogatory credit. You know, it's not about that. The most important thing I do as a mentor when this obstacle arises is I have to convince my student that it's not about them. It's about the deal. A person could be in jail for murder, and if he wants to borrow $200,000 in a first lien position on a $2 million piece of property, who cares? They're either going to pay back the $200,000 or the person who loaned the $200,000 is going to get a $2 million house. So what you need to do to raise private money is realize that it's not about you, it's about the deal. Find stellar deals. Offer your lenders stellar opportunities to get in positions on property where they can hardly get hurt. I mean, something out of this world catastrophic nuclear would have to happen before they would be upside down in their position on this property. So remember, it's not about you, it's about the deal. Find great deals, ask to pay reasonable amounts, and reasonable people will show up and fund your deals. You know, I offer a private money webinar where I talk about private money and I talk about coaching and helping you get through those obstacles and find that money. I like to be completely transparent. I can change your life. If I only help you find one private lender that loans you $50,000 or $100,000, it's still going to change your life. Mainly because if you can do it once, you can do it over and over again. A lot of times, all we need as a young investor is for something to go right one time, and then we have the fever, we get at a high pitch, and we can run and flat out and do it over and over again. It's that first one that's always important. Remember the first time you bought your first house and you made your first $10,000 or $15,000 check? Didn't that change things for you? Well, it's going to be exactly the same way when you get that Private Money Changes Everything course and you go out and you do exactly what I'm telling you to do. Remember, I've raised $26 million. I owe payments on the first on $26 million, all from private people, okay? If I can do it, you can do it. You're going to get one guy to say yes to you, and your whole world's going to change. So check it out. Go to 1000houses.com/free-stuff. Scroll down till you see Private Money Webinar. Click on it. It's free. Watch. And I hope you decide to join me because I will make a difference. All right, that concludes the 4-part series on what is note hypothecation and how it can work for you. I hope you enjoyed it. It's certainly going to change some people's lives out there, I know, because a lot of people don't even think about pledging notes as collaterals, but now you know that's possible. Stay tuned with us. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comments below, and I promise you, we try our best to get back to each and every one of you with a solid answer.